The pyramids of Giza. You think you know what they are. Ancient tombs built by thousands of slaves dragging stones across the desert. Monuments to dead pharaohs, relics of a primitive civilization that somehow managed to stack rocks with impressive precision. That's what the textbooks say. That's what the documentaries claim. But what if everything you've been told about the pyramids is a carefully constructed lie? The story I'm about to share will shatter the official narrative. This is not speculation. This is not theory. This is what one man witnessed when he was taken inside a chamber that doesn't appear on any map, shown technology that shouldn't exist, and told the true purpose of structures that have mystified humanity for thousands of years. I must warn you, this truth is dangerous, not because it will harm you, but because it will make you question everything. Every history book, every archaeological study, every confident expert who claimed to know what the pyramids were built for. Once you understand what these structures actually are, you will never look at human history the same way again. If you've ever sensed that the official story didn't add up, that primitive tools and human muscle couldn't explain what stands on the Giza Plateau, that something profound has been hidden in plain sight for millennia, this story will finally reveal what your intuition has been telling you all along. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell, because what Dr. James Holloway experienced beneath the sands of Egypt will expose the greatest cover-up in human history. Now let me tell you how it all began. Giza Plateau, Egypt, March the 17th, 3:42 a.m. Dr. James Holloway stood alone in the shadow of the Great Pyramid, staring up at the massive structure that had consumed his entire career. At 59, he had spent 34 years studying these stones, measuring them, analyzing them, writing papers that his colleagues increasingly dismissed as the ramblings of a man who had lost his way. The desert wind was cold at this hour. James pulled his jacket tighter and continued to stare. 2.5 million blocks of limestone and granite, some weighing over 50 tons, cut with precision that modern engineers struggled to replicate, aligned to true north with an accuracy of 3/60 of a degree, and the world believed it was built by copper tools and wooden sledges. James had believed it too once. Fresh out of his doctorate at Cambridge, he had arrived in Egypt full of certainty. The pyramids were tombs. The Egyptians were clever but primitive. Everything could be explained by human ingenuity and sufficient labor. That certainty had eroded year by year, measurement by measurement, question by question. It started with the precision. The base of the Great Pyramid was level to within 2.1 centimeters across 13 acres. The corners were perfect right angles. The faces were aligned to the cardinal directions with accuracy that required sophisticated astronomical observation. None of this was impossible for ancient people, but it was improbable. Extraordinarily improbable without tools and knowledge that the official history said they didn't possess. Then came the logistics. 2.5 million blocks, quarried, transported, and placed over 20 years. That meant installing one block every 2 minutes, around the clock, for 2 decades. With copper tools that bent against granite, with ramps that would have required more material than the pyramid itself. James had raised these questions in academic papers, politely at first, then more insistently as the standard explanations failed to satisfy him. His colleagues responded with condescension, then irritation, then ostracism. "Holloway's gone alternative," they whispered at conferences. "Sad, really. He was so promising." His funding dried up. His university position became precarious. His wife, tired of his obsession and the professional isolation it brought, filed for divorce 3 years ago. His daughter stopped returning his calls, embarrassed by the father who had become a punchline in archaeological circles. James had lost everything except the questions, and the questions wouldn't let him go. He had come to Egypt one final time, self-funded, no institutional backing, no research agenda beyond standing here, in the dark, staring at the structure that had ruined his life, hoping for something he couldn't name. Closure, perhaps, or vindication, or just the opportunity to say goodbye to an obsession that had cost him everything. "What are you?" he whispered to the massive stones. "What were you really built for?" The pyramid didn't answer. It never did. It just stood there, ancient and inscrutable, keeping secrets that James had spent his life trying to extract. He checked his watch. Almost 4 in the morning. The security guards knew him by now. knew he was harmless, knew he sometimes came out here at odd hours to stare and think. They left him alone as long as he didn't cause trouble. James was about to head back to his hotel when he saw the light. It came from the eastern face of the pyramid. Not a flashlight, not the glow of a phone screen, something else. A soft blue luminescence that seemed to pulse from within the stone itself. He blinked, rubbed his eyes. The light remained. What the hell? James walked toward it, his heart beginning to race. 34 years studying these structures, and he had never seen anything like this. Was it some kind of restoration equipment? A new scanning technology the authorities were testing? But no one was supposed to be here at this hour. And the light didn't look like any technology he recognized. As he approached, the luminescence grew stronger. It seemed to be emanating from a section of the pyramid's base, a place where the outer casing stones had long since been stripped away. James had examined this area dozens of times. There was nothing unusual about it, just exposed core blocks, weathered by millennia. Except now, one of those blocks was glowing. James reached out to touch it. The stone was warm, not hot, but noticeably warmer than the cold desert night should allow. And there was a vibration, a low hum he felt more than heard, traveling up through his fingers into his arm. "This is impossible," he breathed. The block began to move. James stumbled backward as the massive stone slid inward, revealing an opening that shouldn't exist. Beyond it, a passageway descended into darkness, lit only by more of that pulsing blue light. Every rational part of his brain screamed at him to run, to find the guards, to call someone. This was beyond anything he had ever encountered, beyond archaeology, beyond explanation. But James Holloway had spent 34 years asking questions that no one wanted to answer. He had sacrificed his career, his marriage, his relationship with his daughter, all because he couldn't stop searching for the truth about these structures. The truth was in front of him now, a door that had never been documented, a passage that appeared on no survey, a light that defied everything he knew about physics and history. He stepped inside. The passage sloped downward at a gentle angle, carved from solid rock, with the same impossible precision as the pyramid above. The blue light emanated from the walls themselves, as if the stone had been infused with something luminescent. James ran his hand along the surface, smooth, seamless, no tool marks, no joints. He walked for what felt like several minutes, descending deeper beneath the plateau. The air grew warmer, the humming grew stronger, and then the passage opened into a chamber that stopped his breath entirely. It was vast, cathedral, vast. The ceiling arched high above him, covered in symbols he had never seen in any Egyptian text, and in the center of the chamber stood a figure, tall, slender, not human, gray skin that seemed to shimmer in the blue light, large dark eyes that reflected James's own terrified face back at him, a presence that radiated intelligence and age and something else, something ancient beyond human comprehension. James tried to run. His legs wouldn't obey. He stood frozen at the entrance to the chamber, staring at the impossible being, his mind screaming while his body refused to respond. "Do not be afraid, Dr. Holloway." The voice came from inside his head. Clear, calm, almost gentle. "You have spent your life seeking the truth about these structures. You have sacrificed everything for that search. And now, at last, you are ready to receive what you have been looking for." James found his voice. It came out as a croak. "What are you? What is this place?" "I am a keeper of knowledge. This chamber was built long before the civilization you call Egypt existed, and tonight I am going to show you what the pyramids really are, what they were built to do, and why that truth has been hidden from your species for 12,000 years. James stood at the threshold of everything he had ever wanted to know, everything he had sacrificed for, everything that had cost him his career, his family, his reputation. The truth was waiting, and despite his terror, he found himself walking forward to receive it. The chamber was larger than anything James had encountered in decades of exploring Egyptian structures. The ceiling soared at least 100 feet above him, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and move in the blue light. The walls were lined with panels of some material he couldn't identify, not stone, not metal, something that seemed to absorb and emit light simultaneously. And at the center of it all stood the being, watching him approach with those enormous dark eyes. "This can't be real," James said. His voice echoed strangely in the vast space. "I've studied this plateau for 34 years. There's no chamber like this in any survey, any scan, any historical record. Your surveys and scans were designed to find what you expected to find. This chamber exists at a frequency your instruments cannot detect. It was built to remain hidden until the right moment, until the right person." "The right person? I'm nobody. I'm a disgraced archaeologist that my own profession laughs at. You are the one who kept asking questions when everyone else stopped. You are the one who saw the inconsistencies and refused to explain them away. You sacrificed everything for the truth about these structures. That makes you exactly the right person." James stopped a few feet from the being. Up close, he could see details that made his scientific mind reel. The skin wasn't just gray, it had a subtle luminescence as if lit from within. The eyes weren't simple dark orbs, they contained depths, layers, something that suggested vast intelligence operating on levels he couldn't comprehend. "What are you?" he asked again. "Where do you come from?" "I am what your ancestors called a god, a being from beyond your world who helped establish the foundations of your civilization. I come from a system you cannot see with your telescopes, though you have detected its gravitational influence. My kind have been connected to Earth for longer than your species has existed." "A god?" James laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I spent my career debunking ancient astronaut theories, telling students that the Egyptians didn't need alien help to build the pyramids. You were partially correct. The Egyptians did not build the pyramids. Not the Great Pyramid, at least. It was already ancient when the first Egyptian civilization arose. They found it. They built around it. They incorporated it into their mythology, but they did not construct it." James felt the floor shift beneath him, not physically, conceptually. Everything he thought he knew rearranging itself. That's impossible. The dating, the inscriptions, the historical records, all refer to restoration and modification, not original construction. The Great Pyramid is over 12,000 years old, James. It was built by a civilization that your history books say never existed, a civilization that we helped guide before its destruction. 12,000 years? James shook his head. That would mean it predates the end of the last ice age. It would mean everything you have been taught about human history is incomplete. Yes, that is precisely what it means. James's legs felt weak. He looked around for something to sit on and found a raised section of floor that seemed designed for exactly that purpose. He sank onto it, his mind spinning. Why tell me this? Why now? Why here in the middle of the night with no one else around? Because the time has come for certain truths to be revealed. Your species is approaching a threshold, the same threshold that the previous civilization failed to cross. And understanding the true purpose of the pyramids may help humanity succeed where its predecessors failed. The true purpose. James looked up at the being. Not tombs, never tombs. No, never tombs. The Great Pyramid has never contained a burial. No mummy has ever been found within it. No treasure. No funerary inscriptions. Your archaeologists explain this away as grave robbery, but the truth is simpler. It was never built to house the dead. Then what? What was it built for? The being moved closer. Its movements were fluid, graceful, somehow both alien and familiar. I will show you. But first, you must understand what you are agreeing to. Once you see the truth, you cannot unsee it. Your understanding of human history, of human potential, of your own place in the cosmos will be permanently altered, and you will carry the weight of knowledge that most of your species is not prepared to accept. I've already lost everything because I couldn't stop asking questions. My career, my marriage, my daughter won't even speak to me. James met the being's eyes. I've paid for the truth in advance. I might as well receive it. Your daughter, Sarah. She stopped speaking to you because she believed you had become obsessed with fantasy, that you had abandoned reality for delusion. James flinched at the mention of her name. How do you know about Sarah? We observe. We have observed your species for a very long time, and we have observed you specifically, James Holloway, since you first began asking the questions that others refused to ask. You've been watching me? Waiting for you. There is a difference. Waiting for you to reach the point where you were ready, where you had sacrificed enough, questioned enough, suffered enough to receive what we have to offer. That sounds cruel. Testing me with suffering. Not testing. preparing. The truth is heavy, James. It requires strength to carry. Your suffering has given you that strength. Your losses have freed you from attachments that would have made this knowledge unbearable. James thought about his empty apartment back in London, the boxes of research notes that no one would ever read, the silence of a phone that never rang with his daughter's voice. "Fine," he said quietly. "I'm ready. Show me what the pyramids really are." "Stand. Come to the center of the chamber. What I'm about to show you requires more than words. You must see it directly, experience it. Only then will you truly understand." James stood and followed the being to the center of the vast room. There was a circle inscribed in the floor, made of the same luminescent material as the walls. As he stepped into it, he felt a tingling sensation spread through his body. Close your eyes. When you open them, you will see the pyramids as they were meant to be seen, as they were originally built, and you will understand why that truth changes everything. James closed his eyes. The tingling intensified. He felt as if he were being lifted, stretched, expanded beyond the confines of his physical form. "Now open them." James opened his eyes, and he was no longer in the chamber. He was standing on the Giza Plateau, but it was not the Giza he knew. It was Giza as it had been 12,000 years ago. The pyramids blazed with light. James stood frozen, unable to process what he was seeing. The Great Pyramid was no longer the weathered, sand-colored structure he had studied for 3 decades. It was covered in polished white limestone that reflected the sun like a mirror. And at its apex, where modern visitors saw only a flat, truncated top, there was a capstone. A capstone made of something that wasn't stone at all, something that pulsed with golden light. "My God," he breathed, "it's beautiful." You are seeing the Great Pyramid as it existed 12,000 years ago, before the cataclysm, before the civilization that built it was destroyed, before the survivors of that destruction became the ancestors of what you call ancient Egypt. James turned slowly, taking in the full panorama. The Sphinx was there, but it wasn't the eroded, noseless monument he knew. It was pristine. Its face was different. Not a pharaoh's face, something older, something not quite human. And it too was covered in polished stone that gleamed in the sunlight. The entire plateau was different. There were structures he had never seen, smaller pyramids, temples, buildings that seemed to float above the ground, and everywhere, that same golden light pulsing, connecting everything in a web of luminous energy. "What is this?" James asked. "What am I looking at?" "You're looking at the original purpose of the pyramid complex, not tombs, not monuments to kings. This was a power station, James, a facility that drew energy from the Earth itself and broadcast it across the planet." "A power station? That's impossible. The ancient Egyptians didn't have electricity." "The ancient Egyptians didn't build this. I told you. This predates Egypt by thousands of years. The civilization that constructed these structures had technology. Your species is only beginning to rediscover. They understood principles of energy that your science still considers theoretical." James watched as beams of light shot from the capstones of the various pyramids, connecting them in a geometric pattern that extended beyond the horizon. The pyramids were not isolated structures. They were nodes in a global network. Similar facilities existed at strategic points around the planet. Together, they formed a system that provided free, wireless energy to the entire world. Free energy. James shook his head. That violates everything we understand about physics. It violates everything you have been allowed to understand. The principles are simple, actually. The Earth generates enormous amounts of energy through its rotation, its magnetic field, its geological processes. The pyramids were designed to tap into that energy and convert it into a usable form. The shape itself is critical. The geometry creates a focusing effect that concentrates and amplifies natural energy flows. James looked at the Great Pyramid with new eyes. The precision that had always baffled him suddenly made sense. It wasn't just impressive craftsmanship, it was engineering. Exact specifications required for the structure to function. "The precision," he said slowly. "The alignment to true north, the specific angles, the mathematical ratios, they're not decorative, they're functional." "Yes, every measurement serves a purpose. The base dimensions create resonance with Earth's magnetic field. The internal chambers focus and direct energy. The king's chamber, as you call it, is not a burial room. It is a resonance chamber, positioned at the exact point where the energy streams converge. And the granite in that chamber? The massive beams above it? Granite contains quartz crystals. Under pressure, quartz generates electrical current. This is called the piezoelectric effect. Your scientists discovered it in the 1880s. The builders of the pyramids understood it 12,000 years ago. The granite beams are under enormous compression from the weight of the stone above them. They are constantly generating energy, which the chamber amplifies and the capstone broadcasts. James felt his scientific worldview crumbling and rebuilding simultaneously. Everything the being was saying aligned with anomalies he had noticed but couldn't explain. The precision, the materials, the mathematical relationships, they weren't just impressive, they were necessary. If this technology existed, he said, if there was free energy available to everyone, why was it lost? What happened to the civilization that built this? The scene around him shifted. The light dimmed. The sky darkened. And James watched in horror as destruction came to the Golden City. What happened is what always happens when civilizations reach certain thresholds. They face a choice: evolution or destruction. The civilization that built the pyramids made the wrong choice. The vision showed him war, not the primitive warfare of swords and arrows, energy weapons, craft in the sky, cities burning with fires that seemed to consume everything, even stone. They had technology that could have elevated all of humanity. Instead, they used it to fight each other. Factions arose, ideological divisions, disputes over how the technology should be used, who should control it, what purposes it should serve. The same patterns your civilization is now repeating. James watched the golden pyramids go dark one by one as the network was damaged, disrupted, destroyed. He watched the polished limestone crack and fall away. He watched the capstone of the Great Pyramid shatter. The cataclysm was partly natural. A comet impact triggered massive flooding and climate disruption, but the civilization was already weakened by its internal conflicts. It could not survive both. Within a generation, everything was lost. The survivors scattered, the knowledge fragmented, and the pyramids stood as silent monuments to what had been, their true purpose forgotten. The vision shifted again. James saw the survivors, ragged and traumatized, wandering through a changed landscape. Some carried fragments of the old knowledge. They became the founders of new civilizations, passing down stories that became myths, building structures that echoed the originals but lacked the understanding to fully replicate them. The Egyptians who arose thousands of years later found the pyramids already standing. They recognized them as sacred. They built around them, incorporated them into their religion, claimed them as their own. But they did not know what they had inherited. The technology was gone. Only the shells remained. "And you?" James asked. "Where were you during all this? If your kind helped build this civilization, why didn't you save it?" "We could not interfere with choice. The people of that civilization chose their path. They chose conflict over cooperation. They chose power over wisdom. We provided knowledge and guidance, but we could not force them to use it wisely. Free will is inviolable, James, even when it leads to destruction." "So you just watched? You let an entire civilization destroy itself?" "We preserved what we could. The chamber where you found me contains records of everything that was lost. We have waited for your species to evolve enough to receive this knowledge again, waited for the right moment, the right people." James turned back to look at the devastated plateau. The pyramids still stood, but they were dark now, dead, monuments to failure rather than achievements of brilliance. "Why are you telling me this now? What makes this the right moment?" "Because your civilization is approaching the same threshold. You have developed technologies that could elevate or destroy humanity. Nuclear weapons, artificial intelligence, genetic manipulation. The same choice the previous civilization faced, you now face. And the same factions are arising, the same conflicts over control, the same patterns that led to destruction before. And you think understanding the pyramids can prevent that? I think understanding your true history can help. Your species has been taught that you are young. That civilization is only a few thousand years old. That technology is purely a modern development. These lies keep you disconnected from your heritage. They make you forget that humanity has faced this choice before, and failed. The vision began to shift again. The destroyed plateau faded, replaced by something else. James found himself standing in a vast network of light, seeing the Earth from above, watching lines of energy crisscross the globe. This is what the Pyramid Network looked like at its peak. Free energy, broadcast to every corner of the planet. No scarcity, no conflict over resources, no pollution. A civilization in harmony with its world. James watched the golden web pulse with life. He could see cities, but not the dense, polluted sprawls of modern civilization. These cities were integrated with nature, clean, beautiful, powered by invisible energy that required no fuel, produced no waste. This is what humanity could have, what it could still have. The knowledge is not lost, it has been preserved, and the time is coming when it must be shared again. Shared how? With who? I'm a disgraced archaeologist. Nobody listens to me. The right people will listen, the ones who are ready. Your role is not to convince the masses. Your role is to plant seeds, to document what you have learned, to add your voice to the growing chorus of those who are beginning to remember. Remember what? That humanity is not alone, that your history is far longer and far more complex than you have been told, that the technology you need to survive the coming crisis already exists, buried in structures that have been hiding in plain sight for millennia, that the pyramids are not mysteries to be debated, but blueprints to be decoded. James thought about his life's work, all the papers, all the measurements, all the questions that had cost him everything. They hadn't been wasted after all. They had been preparation. The hidden chamber, he said, the one I found tonight. Can it be opened to others? Can researchers study it? In time. When humanity is ready. The chamber exists at a frequency that your current instruments cannot detect, but as more people awaken to the truth, as the collective consciousness shifts, what was hidden will become visible. The chamber is only the beginning. There are similar repositories beneath pyramids around the world, beneath structures in South America, Asia, even Antarctica. Each contains pieces of the lost knowledge. Each waits for the moment of revelation. Antarctica? There are pyramids in Antarctica? There are structures in Antarctica that would revolutionize your understanding of history. They remain buried under ice for now, but the ice is melting, and what is revealed will change everything. James's mind raced with implications. His entire career suddenly made sense. Every strange measurement, every inexplicable precision, every anomaly that mainstream archaeology dismissed. They weren't errors or coincidences. They were clues. The purpose of the pyramids, he said slowly, working through the implications. It wasn't just energy generation. There's something else, something spiritual, very perceptive. The energy network served practical purposes, yes, but it served higher purposes as well. The pyramids were designed to amplify consciousness, to facilitate communication between physical and non-physical realms, to accelerate spiritual evolution. Communication with non-physical realms? What you would call the afterlife, the dimensions where consciousness exists without physical form. The pyramid network created stable bridges between worlds. This is why so many ancient cultures associated pyramids with death and rebirth, not because they were tombs, but because they were portals, places where the barrier between dimensions was thin. James thought about every mystical tradition associated with the pyramids, the initiations, the rituals, the claims of transcendent experiences within the chambers, not superstition, technology. The King's Chamber, he said. People have reported strange experiences there for centuries, visions, altered states, contact with something beyond. The chamber still functions, weakly. Even without the capstone, even without the network, there is residual energy. Sensitive individuals can tap into it. What they experience is real, James. The pyramid is a machine for expanding consciousness. Your scientists dismiss these experiences as hallucination, but they are contact with the larger reality that physical perception normally conceals. And if the network was restored, if the pyramids were reactivated, humanity would change, not instantly, not violently, but profoundly. The barriers that keep consciousness trapped in limited physical perception would thin. People would begin to remember what they are, divine beings temporarily inhabiting physical forms, connected to each other and to the cosmos in ways your current worldview denies. That sounds like what religions have been promising for thousands of years. Religions are memories of what was once reality, fragmented, distorted, often manipulated for control, but the core truths are real. Consciousness survives death. The physical world is not all that exists. Humanity has a destiny far greater than your current civilization acknowledges. The pyramids were built to help you remember these truths, and when the time is right, they will serve that purpose again. James stood in the vision of the Golden Network, feeling something shift inside him. The bitterness of his professional isolation, the grief of his failed marriage, the pain of his estranged daughter, all of it began to transform. He hadn't been chasing fantasies. He had been following a trail of truth that led here, to this moment, to this revelation. "What am I supposed to do with this?" he asked. "How do I even begin to share something so far beyond what people are ready to accept?" You share what you can with those who will listen. You write, you speak, you add your evidence to the growing body of work that challenges the official narrative. You do not need to convince everyone. You only need to reach those who are ready. "And my daughter? Sarah? She thinks I'm crazy. She hasn't spoken to me in 2 years. Your daughter is closer to understanding than you realize. She has been having dreams, James. Dreams of pyramids, dreams of golden light, dreams of her father standing before structures that pulse with power. She does not understand these dreams yet, but she will. And when she does, she will seek you out." James felt tears on his cheeks. He hadn't cried in years, hadn't allowed himself that vulnerability. But now, standing in a vision of what humanity had been and could be again, the tears came freely. "I've been so alone," he whispered, "for so long, carrying questions nobody wanted to hear." "You were never alone. We have been with you, watching, waiting, guiding in ways you could not perceive. The isolation you felt was necessary. It freed you from attachments that would have prevented you from receiving this truth. But the isolation is ending now. You will find others who share your understanding. You will build connections that replace what was lost." The vision began to fade. The golden network dimmed. James felt himself being pulled back, returned to the chamber beneath the pyramid. "There is one more thing you must see before you return to the surface. The most important thing. The reason why this knowledge must be shared now." The chamber solidified around him, but it had changed. The walls now displayed images, moving like film but more vivid, more real. "This is your civilization as it exists today. Watch." James saw cities, modern cities, gleaming towers and crowded streets. But overlaid on them was something else, a darkness, a web of shadow that seemed to feed on fear, conflict, separation. Your species is caught in a trap, a cage of consciousness that keeps you disconnected from your true nature. This cage was built deliberately over thousands of years by those who benefit from human ignorance, institutions that profit from scarcity, systems that require conflict to sustain themselves, beliefs that keep you afraid and separated from each other and from the divine source that is your birthright. The images showed wars, economic collapse, environmental destruction, political division, all of it connected by that web of shadow. The pyramid network was designed to dissolve this kind of darkness, to broadcast frequencies of consciousness that make fear and separation impossible to sustain. This is why the knowledge was suppressed. This is why those who control your world have hidden the truth about human history. Because if humanity remembered what the pyramids really are, the systems of control would collapse. So there's been a deliberate cover-up? Not just ignorance? Both. The original knowledge was lost through catastrophe, but when fragments resurfaced, they were suppressed. Researchers who got too close to the truth were discredited. Evidence was hidden or destroyed. Alternative explanations were ridiculed into silence. The same pattern you experienced in your own career. James thought about every colleague who had dismissed him, every institution that had rejected his papers, every funding source that had dried up when he asked the wrong questions. "I thought it was just academic politics, professional jealousy." Some of it was, but the pattern itself is maintained by forces that understand what is at stake. Your species on the verge of remembering its true history, its true potential. and powerful interests that need humanity to remain ignorant. How do we fight that? How do we break through suppression that's been operating for thousands of years? By doing exactly what you are doing, asking questions, seeking truth, sharing what you find with those who will listen. The suppression depends on isolation, on keeping truth seekers separated and marginalized. But the truth seekers are finding each other now. The internet has made isolation impossible, and the truth, once it reaches critical mass, cannot be contained. The images on the walls changed again. Now James saw people, thousands of people, millions, all around the world, asking questions, researching, sharing, a network of consciousness growing stronger every day. You're not alone, James. You never were. You are part of an awakening that is accelerating beyond the ability of any power structure to control, and the pyramids are central to this awakening, because when humanity truly understands what these structures are, when the evidence becomes undeniable, the entire framework of lies will collapse. James watched the global network of awakening consciousness. It looked almost like the golden energy network he had seen in the ancient vision. Different form, same pattern. Consciousness itself is building a new network, human by human, connection by connection. And when it reaches critical mass, the old pyramids will reactivate, not because anyone repairs them physically, but because the collective consciousness of humanity will provide the energy they need. The technology and the spirituality are not separate. They never were. The chamber returned to its original state. The being stood before James, patient, ancient, waiting. You have seen what you needed to see. Now you must decide what to do with this knowledge. I cannot compel you. I can only offer truth and let you choose. James stood in silence for a long moment, integrating everything he had witnessed. The golden civilization, the destruction, the suppression, the awakening. His entire life had led to this chamber, this moment, this choice. I'll share it, he said finally. I don't know how, I don't know who will listen, but I'll find a way. That is all we ask. That is all we have ever asked. Plant seeds, let them grow. Trust that the truth has its own power, and know that you are supported, even when you feel alone. The being moved toward the passage that led back to the surface. Come, it is almost dawn. You should return before the guards notice your absence, but you may return here when you need guidance. The chamber will open for you now. You have been recognized. James followed the being through the luminescent passage, his mind still reeling, his heart still processing. He had entered the pyramid looking for closure. He was leaving with a mission. As they reached the entrance, the being paused. One more thing, James. Your daughter will call you in 3 days. When she does, do not tell her everything at once. Simply tell her that you love her, that you're sorry for being absent, that you understand if she can't forgive you yet. The rest will come in time. How do you know she'll call? Because she had a dream last night, a dream of you standing before a pyramid that glowed with golden light. She woke up crying and didn't know why. The seed has been planted in her consciousness. Now it needs time to grow. James stepped out into the cold pre-dawn air, watching the being fade back into the passage, watching the stone slide closed behind it, leaving no trace that an opening had ever existed. He stood alone on the Giza Plateau, the stars beginning to fade as dawn approached, the ancient pyramids looming above him, keeping secrets that he now shared. 12,000 years of hidden truth, a global network of suppressed knowledge, a civilization teetering on the same threshold that had destroyed its predecessor, and one disgraced archaeologist who finally understood why he had sacrificed everything for questions nobody wanted to hear. The work was just beginning. James walked back to his hotel as the sun rose over Cairo, painting the city in shades of gold and amber. His body was exhausted. He hadn't slept all night, but his mind was more awake than it had been in years, maybe ever. He spent the first day in his hotel room, writing, not academic papers with careful citations and hedged conclusions, raw documentation of everything he had witnessed, the chamber, the being, the visions of the ancient civilization, the truth about the pyramids that would revolutionize human understanding of history. He filled notebook after notebook, just as others who had received similar revelations had done, though James would never know about those parallel journeys. The words poured out of him like they had been waiting his entire life to be released. On the second day, he returned to the plateau. In daylight, with tourists and guides milling about, the pyramid looked exactly as it always had, weathered, ancient, keeping its secrets. James walked to the spot where the passage had opened, running his hands along the stones. Nothing, no warmth, no vibration, no hint that a doorway existed. But he knew it was there, waiting. The being had said the chamber would open for him when he needed it. For now, he needed to process what he had already received. On the third day, his phone rang. James stared at the screen. Sarah, his daughter's name, which he hadn't seen on an incoming call in over 2 years. His hand trembled as he answered. "Dad?" Her voice was uncertain, fragile, nothing like the angry woman who had told him 2 years ago that she couldn't watch him destroy himself anymore. "Sarah, I'm here." Silence. Then, "I had the strangest dream about you, about the pyramids. You were standing in front of them, and they were glowing, like they were made of light, and you looked so peaceful, so certain. I woke up crying, and I don't know why." James closed his eyes. The being had told him this would happen, had told him exactly what to say. "I love you, Sarah. I'm sorry I've been absent. I'm sorry my obsession pushed everyone away. I understand if you can't forgive me yet." More silence, then the sound of crying. "I've been so angry at you, Dad, for choosing those stupid pyramids over your family, over Mom, over me. But in the dream, you didn't look crazy. You looked like you'd found something real, something important." "I did find something, sweetheart. I can't explain it all right now, but I found what I was looking for, and I'm ready to come home. To be present, to be your father again if you'll let me." They talked for 2 hours, not about pyramids or ancient civilizations or hidden chambers, just about life, about the years they had lost, about the possibility of rebuilding what had been broken. When they hung up, James sat in his hotel room and wept, not from grief this time, from something he had forgotten how to feel, hope. He flew back to London a week later. His apartment felt different now, not empty, full of potential. He began organizing his notes, structuring the knowledge he had received into something he could share. The first month was difficult. Every time he tried to write about his experience in conventional terms, it sounded insane. Aliens, hidden chambers, 12,000-year-old power stations. No academic journal would touch it. No mainstream publisher would consider it. But then he remembered what the being had said. He didn't need to convince everyone. He only needed to reach those who were ready. He started with the internet. Forums dedicated to alternative archaeology, groups questioning the official narrative of human history, places where his ideas wouldn't be automatically dismissed. He shared fragments of what he had learned, carefully, testing reactions. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people who had been asking the same questions, researchers who had noticed the same anomalies, a global community of seekers who recognized truth when they heard it. "I've been measuring Egyptian structures for 20 years, one researcher wrote. The precision always bothered me. The official explanations never made sense. Your posts articulate what I felt but couldn't express." "My grandmother was Egyptian," another message read. "She used to tell me the pyramids were older than anyone knew, that they were built by people from the stars. I thought it was just folklore. Now I'm not so sure." James began connecting with these people, sharing more, learning from their research, building a network of like-minded investigators who were piecing together the suppressed history of human civilization. 3 months after Egypt, he gave his first public talk, a small venue in London, maybe 50 people. He was terrified, standing in front of an audience, sharing experiences that could destroy whatever remained of his professional reputation. But as he spoke, he watched faces transform, skepticism giving way to curiosity, curiosity giving way to recognition. By the end, people were in tears, not because he had convinced them of something new, because he had given them permission to believe what they had always sensed was true. "How do you know all this?" someone asked during the Q&A. James paused. He had prepared an answer that avoided the most unbelievable elements, but something made him tell the truth. "I was shown by a being that is not human, in a chamber beneath the Great Pyramid that doesn't appear on any map. I know how that sounds. I know it seems insane. But I spent 34 years asking questions about the pyramids, and that's where the questions finally led me." He expected laughter, dismissal, the same rejection he had faced from academic colleagues. Instead, he got silence, and then, slowly, nodding, acceptance. "I've seen them too," a woman in the front row said quietly. "The beings, not at the pyramids, but I've seen them. I thought I was losing my mind." Others spoke up, their own experiences, their own glimpses of impossible things. A room full of people who had been isolated by their encounters suddenly finding each other. That talk led to more talks, larger venues, podcasts, interviews. James became a voice in the growing movement of people questioning the official narrative of human history, not the loudest voice, not a guru or a leader, just one more researcher adding evidence to the pile. 6 months after Egypt, Sarah came to visit. She had been following his work online, reading his posts, watching his talks. She arrived skeptical but curious. "Show me," she said. "Show me what you found." James spread his research across the kitchen table. Measurements, photographs, mathematical analyses. The evidence he had accumulated over 34 years, now viewed through the lens of what the being had revealed. Sarah studied it for hours. She was a civil engineer. She understood precision. She understood what it took to achieve the tolerances documented in the pyramid structures. "This shouldn't be possible," she said finally. "Not with the tools they supposedly had, not in the time frame they claim. The engineering alone." "I know. That's what I've been saying for decades. That's what got me dismissed as a crank." Sarah looked at her father. "But the rest of it? Aliens? Hidden chambers? A 12,000-year-old civilization? I can't prove that part. I can only tell you what I experienced, what I saw." "And you believe it was real? Not a hallucination? Not some kind of breakdown?" James met his daughter's eyes. "I believe it was the most real experience of my life. Everything else feels like a dream by comparison. That chamber, that being, the visions of what the pyramids once were. I know it sounds impossible, but I know what I saw." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and took his hand. "I don't know if I believe all of it, but I believe you believe it. And I believe the evidence you've gathered deserves serious consideration." She squeezed his hand. "I'm sorry I abandoned you, Dad. I thought you were losing yourself in fantasy, but maybe you were finding something everyone else was too afraid to see." They rebuilt their relationship over the following months. Sarah didn't become a convert to her father's beliefs, but she became a supporter. She helped him organize his research, connected him with engineers who could validate his measurements, brought scientific rigor to his more speculative claims. 1 year after Egypt, James returned to the plateau. This time, Sarah came with him. They stood together at the base of the Great Pyramid as the sun set, watching the ancient stones turn gold in the fading light. "Do you think the chamber will open again?" Sarah asked. "When I need it to. That's what I was told." "And you trust that? A being you met once in the middle of the night?" James smiled. "I trust what I experienced, and I trust that whatever guided me to that chamber has a purpose I'm still discovering." They stayed until the stars emerged, father and daughter reunited in the shadow of mysteries that were finally beginning to reveal themselves. 2 years after Egypt, James published his book, not through an academic press, self-published, like so many others carrying truths the mainstream wasn't ready to accept. He titled it, "Before the Sands, The Hidden History of the Pyramids." It found its audience, slowly at first, then faster, translated into a dozen languages, discussed on podcasts and in forums around the world, attacked by mainstream archaeologists, which only increased its visibility. James didn't claim to have all the answers. He presented his evidence. He shared his experience, and he let readers decide for themselves what to believe. The being had been right. The suppression was failing. Too many people were asking questions. Too many pieces of evidence were surfacing. The official narrative was crumbling, not through any single revelation, but through the accumulated weight of 1,000 researchers, 1,000,000 seekers, a global awakening to the possibility that human history was far stranger and far longer than anyone had been allowed to know. James was just one voice among many, one seed among thousands being planted. But seeds grow, and sometimes, when enough of them take root, they can crack through even the most solid stone. He thought often about the golden network he had seen in his vision, the pyramids connected by beams of light, energy flowing freely across the planet, a civilization in harmony with its world and with the cosmos. It had existed once, it could exist again, and somewhere beneath the sands of Giza, in a chamber that waited for the right moment to fully reveal itself, the truth was patient. It had waited 12,000 years. It could wait a little longer, but not much longer. The awakening was accelerating, and James Holloway, disgraced archaeologist turned truth seeker, was exactly where he was supposed to be. Dr. James Holloway spent 34 years asking questions that cost him everything: his career, his marriage, his relationship with his daughter, all because he couldn't accept the official story about structures that defied every conventional explanation. What he discovered in that hidden chamber beneath the Great Pyramid validates what millions of people have always sensed. The pyramids are not tombs. They never were. They are remnants of a technology so advanced that its true purpose has been hidden from humanity for 12,000 years. A global network of free energy, wireless power broadcast across the planet, a civilization that achieved harmony with the Earth and the cosmos, all of it destroyed by the same conflicts that threaten our world today, all of it waiting to be rediscovered by a humanity ready to learn from its own forgotten past. The evidence has always been there: the impossible precision, the astronomical alignments, the mathematical relationships that encode knowledge supposedly unknown to ancient people. Mainstream archaeology has dismissed these anomalies for decades, but the anomalies are not going away. They are accumulating, and the explanations are running out. You have felt it. The sense that the official story doesn't add up. The intuition that something profound is hiding in plain sight. That feeling is not fantasy. It is recognition. Your consciousness remembering what your education taught you to forget. The pyramids are waking up, and so is humanity. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. What have you always suspected about the pyramids? What questions have you been afraid to ask? Your voice is part of the awakening. Your curiosity matters. And if you want more revelations like this one, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. The greatest cover-up in human history is ending. The truth about our past is the key to our future. And the pyramids have been waiting 12,000 years for us to finally understand.